We take it up. Let's lose control. We turn it up. And let the good times roll.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to Outside the Ropes. I'm Tom Hannifan. I'm joined by the reigning digital media champion, Joe Hendry, who this Friday night, live on Impact Plus, Fight TV, and YouTube for our Ultimate Insiders, will defend his digital media championship once again against Moose, this time in a combat match at No Surrender in Las Vegas. So there's a lot for you to look forward to. You're facing Moose again. You've put Matt Cardona as well in your rear view. How are you feeling going into your first combat match?
Honestly, I feel fantastic. It's just been such a whirlwind, is it even 6 months? You know, it just flies by this quick. I mean, I just relish the opportunity to inspire the Impact Wrestling fan base, but also the other wrestlers as well. You know, I mean, before, Moose was just Moose. Now he's Dancing Moose. And well, Matt Cardona, we know what he is.
God, you really got in Matt Cardona's head. You really messed him up, and you've done the same with Moose. So I'm very interested to see what happens this Friday night at No Surrender. But let's talk a little bit about your return to Impact Wrestling. You arrive here in the fall, but you were with Impact once upon a time. What was that first run like for you in Impact Wrestling?
Well, you know me, Tom. I always like to talk about myself. I get a lot of questions about this. A lot of people ask me about what happened there, but the truth is, I did not have a visa at that time. And we were doing shows in Canada and Mexico. So I could only be present on Canadian shows and Mexican shows. And so it was around that time when Impact moved back into the United States for the production. And so we had to, harmoniously part ways there. I did feel like there was unfinished business. It was a shame because I did very much enjoy my time. Me and Grado had a lot of fun. I learned a lot, but I think that I was truly ready for the opportunity that was presented to me this time. I think that was a good taste for me to understand what it takes to be a main eventer in this business. And I feel like everything that transpired after that has brought me to where I am. I'm a big believer that life's a journey.
That's very true. You had quite the journey with Grado, who is unique. I've called him an Impact legend in the past. What is it like dealing with Grado on a day-to-day basis?
Man, Grado is very difficult to quantify his charisma. But, everybody loves Grado. Everybody remembers Grado. He's a special guy.
He's very special. I had the chance to meet him one time in New Orleans surrounding a big wrestling weekend. And I didn't really understand much of what he was saying, but I know that he was enthusiastic, and to your point, there's a certain aura about him. And you have a similar aura, and it's followed you here to the United States. I don't know if it's exactly the same as Grado, but now that you're here in Impact Wrestling, you make your Bound for Glory debut. Do you feel like you've settled in? Do you feel comfortable?
That's a great question. My mentality has definitely changed. I used to be one of these people that was very much in the mindset of I need to achieve this by this day and that by that day. And, a lot of life's journey is out with your control. And I've learned that success is dependent on how you respond to the factors that are put in front of you. There is an element of where the wind takes you. You can't force a certain path. And now what I've tried to focus on is just being the very best at what I am doing right now. So for example, if I have a match, I will give the match my absolute best. If I have a promo, I will give that promo my absolute best. If I have a meet and greet, it's the same. Hey, even this right here, I will give it my best.
I appreciate that very much. I want to cycle back to your athletic background. At what point did what you were pursuing in the UK mesh with your pursuits of wrestling?
So it's interesting that there were two factors that led to me taking up amateur wrestling, which I started at 26 years old. And I remember having a conversation with my dad and my brother. And my dad is my biggest supporter. So this is the one time he questioned Joe Hendry's abilities. And maybe that gave me the motivation, who knows? But him and my brother, I told them, listen, I'm gonna start amateur wrestling and I'm gonna do it at an elite level. And they were like, you can't start a new sport at 26 and be elite. I started pro wrestling when I was just about to turn 25, so I beg to differ. But what happened was, I went to see the Commonwealth Games opening ceremony, and that's basically it's the Olympics without the US and Russia, right? So it's a high-level competition, and I watched the athletes walk out the stadium, and I thought, I should probably legitimize myself, because not only is that going to help Joe Hendry make more money, but also when the kids in the playground are discussing who would win in a fight between Joe Hendry and, well, let's be honest, anybody on the roster, it's going to go my way. So I went on to win 2 British titles, 1 in freestyle wrestling, 1 in Greco-Roman wrestling, and I represented Scotland at the Commonwealth Games. What's interesting, however, is Robert Whittaker was the UFC middleweight champion at the time. He announces he's going to enter the Amateur Wrestling Championship at the Commonwealth Games. Dana White is like, hey, it's on you. If you get injured at the Commonwealth Games, we're going to strip you the title or whatever. And Robert Whittaker claims that's the reason he pulled out of the 97 kilogram category. But I think we all know he took one look at Joe Hendry and thought, I may be UFC champ, but I ain't got one of these. You know what I mean?
252 pounds of caution, I guess.
Yeah, well, I wasn't 252 at the time. I had to do a little cut to get down to 97.
I'm not great with the kilograms to pounds. I appreciate that. So that's your athletic background. How did the musical styling of Joe Hendry find its way into what you were doing as an athlete?
So I started professional wrestling relatively late in the game. I was 24, about to turn 25. But what the benefit I think that gave me was an almost childlike naivety when it came to the business, in that I looked at it and said, okay, to me, the entrance is half the battle. I can't just magically give myself 10 years of experience in professional wrestling, but I do have these musical skills and I can write very catchy songs. And I thought, I can write my own music and half of what I do is taken care of without me having to have 10 years on the road. And I then use that to, take a little jab or two at my opponents.
'Cause I did some detective work, and he's the biggest dummy in the biz.
And that got me a lot of prominent matches very quickly. So for example, I started training on January 1st, 2013. In 2016, I wrestled Kurt Angle in the main event of a pay-per-view. Now, I don't know if you can imagine the pressure. And Tom, I know you've been in some situations which have pressure, so you can probably empathize. But that was pretty wild. That was pretty wild. So the entrance has helped me get that experience. And now here we are.
You've messed with the likes of Kurt Angle, Drew Galloway.
I'll tell you this. Sorry to cut you off there, Tom. Joe Hendry has courage, but even Joe Hendry was a little bit nervous about doing a custom entrance video on Kurt Angle, I'll tell you that.
I can't blame you.
Yeah, there were a few jabs in there, one of them including me taking all of his medals and throwing them in the trash. And, thankfully, Kurt's got a great sense of humor, so I'm still sitting here today. Also, don't mean to brag, but I kicked out of a top rope angle slam or two,
The one thing that I want to impress upon fans who don't know is to express your commitment to Impact Wrestling.
That's a great word.
A lot of people might not understand this, is that you are regularly traveling from Glasgow to the United States to compete, to perform at Impact Wrestling events and tapings. Almost every other weekend, multiple times a month. I mean, how do you do it?
It's tough, Tom. It's tough, but I can't sit here and deprive an entire continent of Joe Hendry. That would just be irresponsible, So it's like, I can't just go, I've moved to America now, guess I'll forget about Europe. I mean, come on. The song makes it very clear. Joe Hendry is a worldwide thing here, So I take it as a responsibility to have my presence in Scotland, but also all across the UK and Europe and everywhere in the world, quite frankly. It's tough, but it's a responsibility and one I enjoy.
And at the same time, ever since you won the Digital Media Championship, you've been able to represent it not just in the United States, but overseas. What have those opportunities been like now that you're the Digital Media Champion?
It's been amazing. It's just you're changing lives, Tom. It's not just a pro wrestling match. It's an experience. The power that I have to motivate and inspire people now that I'm the Digital Media Champion, it's something that I take very seriously. This belt basically says that you're in charge of the internet. So I mean, you've got your Elon Musks and you've got your Jeff Bezos and all that, and now you've got your Joe Hendry, and it's a responsibility that I shoulder with me.
It's a big deal. In terms of individual circumstances where you've inspired people, can you Give us an example, maybe you've not already shared on Impact Wrestling Television.
How much time you got, Tom? Because, I'll give you one example. I had a friend of mine who is, on paper, dude's a millionaire, you know? But he says to me, look, I'm making 400 or 500 grand a year trading stocks, but he says, I love to juggle, you know? And I said, Bill, look, you've got the money. It ain't all about the money. Just go juggle. Just go juggle. You know what he did? I inspired him so much that he went and quit a 6-figure job the next day. And now he juggles.
How's he doing financially now?
Haven't talked to him in a while, gotta be honest. But he's juggling.
Let's talk about No Surrender. This situation with Moose has been evolving, devolving to a degree. You two battled it hard to kill. Now it's in a .combat match, very different environment. How do you feel things are going to go down this Friday night in Vegas?
I don't start fights, but I'll finish them, all right? Now, I know a lot of people think that, you know, Joe Hendry isn't going to partake in the violence that comes with a .combat match. And look, I don't want to have to hurt Moose, but if that's what I need to do to inspire him, I thought the Dancing Moose video would be enough to inspire Moose and get him on the right path, but he still hasn't accepted that Joe Hendry's the champ, you know? So if I have to take a Sega Dreamcast and slap Moose in the face with it, that's what I'll do.
Joe, best of luck this Friday night at No Surrender, defending your Digital Media Championship against Moose in Vegas. A reminder to all Impact Wrestling fans, all you have to do is say his name.